right, the second type of rock that we're going to look at is sedimentary rocks. And sediments, we have to remember, are small pieces of other rock, like pebbles, sand, silt, or clay. And this list is actually from the biggest down to the smallest size particles. So clay-sized particles are the smallest size particles. Sometimes sedimentary rocks will include fossils, and fossils are materials that were left behind by once living things like bones, even like footprints, and shells are also included in fossils. So sediments will settle out of water. So that means waters or like rivers can carry a lot of sediments. When the water slows down, it will dump these sediments along its banks into lakes and oceans. The sediments will settle out of water and they form horizontal layers. The next layer will get deposited on top of the previous layer, and the next layer gets deposited on top. So each layer of sedimentary rock is younger than the layer underneath it. And we call this the law of superposition. And that just says that the layer on top is the youngest, the layer at the bottom is the oldest. So sediments get deposited in many different environments, like beaches and deserts. They're examples of really big deposits of sediment. The bottom of the oceans, lakes, ponds, rivers, marshes, and swamps are also where sediments get deposited. And avalanches can also produce large piles of sediments. So the environment where sediments are deposited determines what type of sedimentary rock that they can form. I think in the very first video, we talked about briefly how when we analyze rocks, they give us clues about the environment where they formed. And this is especially true about sedimentary rocks. So clastic rocks are rocks that have rock fragments that get compacted or squeezed. So compacted means to squeeze. And then they get cemented together. And clastic rocks get grouped by the size of their sediments. Remember when I said that pebbles were the biggest, all the way down to clay-sized particles being the smallest. So, compacted describes sediments that have hardened by being squeezed together. See, there's that key word. By the weight of the layers on top of them. Cemented describes substances that have hardened or crystallized in the spaces between different sediments. And usually it will be minerals that are filling these spaces. So this is kind of like a glue that holds the sediments together. The cementing minerals come from the water and they move through those sediments and get deposited in those spaces between the bigger sediments. So here is your classic rock groups, and I believe the last slide will have pictures of these. A conglomerate is a sedimentary rock that has rounded stone-sized pebbles. Breccia is sedimentary rocks, and their stone sediments have angles to them. Sandstone is sedimentary rocks that have sand-sized particles. Siltstone has sedimentary rock with silt-sized particles. And silt is slightly smaller than sand. So again, we're going from big down to small. Shale is sedimentary rocks that made up of clay-sized particles. And clay is our smallest size particle, and it's very similar to just hardened mud. So you definitely need to know the size order of the particles, so from big to small or small to big, and then each of these different rock groups. There can be chemical sedimentary rocks, and this forms when crystals precipitate out of a liquid. So example would be like halite. This would be your salt that gets dissolved in water, and when the water evaporates, It leaves behind halite, and another example of a chemical sedimentary rock is gypsum. So like I said, here is your pictures, your conglomerate. You can see each of these particles and notice how they're rounded edges versus breccia where they're much more angled. See how they kind of seem like a square or a triangle. Sandstone again has sand-sized particle. Siltstone has silt-sized particle. And then we have our rock salt or halite, and that's our precipitate. Limestone is considered a bioclastic type of sedimentary rock. Remember, bio means life. And so oftentimes limestone will have living or fossilized components. Coal is an example of an organic sedimentary rock because coal was made from plants, and plants were our organic material. So again, just a brief overview of sedimentary rocks. The big thing here is to know your sediment sizes and the names of those sediment sizes in the order, either from big to small or small to big.